That's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to begin with questions. Who has a question? We're happy to address anybody's question. Any questions in life, philosophy, the future? I don't know, the lotto numbers, whatever you want. We'll tell it to you. You have a question?
I have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
So my question is about the Haftarah Kamorka.
Yeah.
And is it about like everyone? Because what about like people that hurt you? So,
Wow,
like,
that's a good question.
And I respect them and be nice to them, and it's different things to love them.
Okay, that's a really good question.
What was the question?
Question is, how do you love somebody that maybe hurt you? It says in the Torah to love your friend as yourself. So, the other day we did a whole class. Somebody asked about criticism, right? How to deal with criticism. So we did a whole class and we subdivided out, when it's appropriate or inappropriate, perhaps, to get angry or something like that. So it's a very difficult question, in fact, because the question deals with something that we all go through. Every single person wants love, the nature of a human being, even animals, even we go even further, even stones, huh? Especially animals. Yeah, you have cats, right. And then you have plants. Everything thrives from love. And there's this, I don't know if it's how true it is, but basically there's this story that in the Amazon forest, when the tribe wants to kill a tree, they'll go around the tree and they'll shout at it every day for 30 days. I don't know how long they're shouting at the tree, and the tree dies. And so the writer says, listen, I don't know if it works by trees, but I'm sure it will work by humans, So in other words, we all have a very strong desire for love. Love is a great desire. And a lot of us, in a way, have been hurt. And a lot of us, in fact, what we do is we kind of stop loving because it's called Arlas Halev. We create a protection around our heart. And the reason that we have this protection is it protects us from feeling emotions. Now, look at that. What? Okay, great, welcome. Yeah, of course. Okay, want some water? Okay. So we can get, maybe at some point we get a cup in case you want. So the story is that the question that we're dealing with is, how do you love when somebody's hurt you, or what do you do in that circumstance? And so, so the first thing is that what happens. It's very, very interesting. What happens, like psychologically, is that by nature, when a person's born, we have a certain. If you want a chair, you're welcome to. But by nature, when a person is born, we have a certain openness, right? We're open. We're really loving love. They say that little puppies, they'll do a lot of manipulation in order to get love, right? And in fact, I mean, psychologists say, I don't know if it's true, that kind of we need love more than we need food. Children that haven't been loved can really, really can really, really not develop, right? And that's why love is such an important thing. It's very, very undervalued, in a certain sense. It's very interesting. There's a study, and the study is about like kind of the ape society. So they have a very They have a culture in a way. They have a structure which is not that dissimilar to human beings in a certain sense. So everybody knows about the alpha male, right? It's very famous, the alpha male. But in fact, there's an alpha female. What's the alpha female? It's the person, the ape mother, and so the alpha male, let's say, protects the tribe and maybe creates like solutions, like when they're like machlaikas and this and that, they'll come create the peace. But the alpha female nurtures the tribe. Like somebody, gets a boo boo, they come and she hugs them. Like she understands the emotional need of the people. And it's interesting. I asked my sister once, very, very clever woman, it's like, I forgot the exact words I used, but something like, what's the role of the wife, the mother? She says, taking care of everyone's emotions. So I thought it was very profound thing that she's saying, is because you come into an environment, and the environment, let's say, is a warm environment. This is one of the things that the Rebbe loved very much about Jewish women, that Jewish women bring the warmth of Judaism into the home. In fact, as we're kind of discussing this, and the question was asked by a Jewish woman, so I just read something very, very beautiful. It was a convention where Rebbe spoke to Jewish women, and the theme of the convention was like Tov l'shamayim, Tov l'brios, like to be good for God, good to people. And the Rebbe spoke a lot, and kind of in the summary, Rebbe spoke about the role of the Jewish woman, first of all, being to teach Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe really, in a way, I would say, everything really began with the previous Rebbe, who was his teacher, but it's really the first time in Jewish history that Jewish women were really empowered. They were empowered to go outside of the home, so to say. It really begins with Sarah Imenu, Sarah, our ancestor. She dealt with the women, right? They were basically, if you want to call it, they were lahavdil missionaries. They were there for the world, to convert, to inspire the world. And so Sarah Imenu dealt with the women, Avram dealt with the men, she dealt with the women. They kind of opened up the first Chabad house. So the idea is that the Rebbe really inspired women, not only because traditionally Jewish women were very much about the home, but not to be limited to the home, to be leaders. You look at it, certainly Chabad Rebbetzins, they go out, and the Rebbe encouraged everybody, a child in school, wherever it is, go teach, go inspire, right? So obviously mainly men are for men and women are for women, but it's a role. But also it was very interesting what the Rebbe said in this convention. It's a theme that the Rebbe speaks about many times, is the idea of really the woman bringing inspiration to her husband, bringing inspiration to her sons. Like Rebbe speaks about a woman asking the children, the boys, what did you learn in school today? In other words, certainly we did a booklet on my mother at some stage, and my brother wrote. He was actually quite a bit of a wild child, and my mother would like ask him, okay, how's the learning going? Tell me about. In other words, knowing that there's somebody that really cares about your learning, that wants you to succeed. This is very. The Rebbe actually encouraged men to learn from women, because he liked their style of education, a warmth, right? Did not necessarily. It's a very interesting thing. I kind of just thought about it. But if you go into a male-dominated environment, it could even be, let's just use a simple environment, let's say an office, right? But it could even be maybe a shul or something, right? It's like kind of it works, but it like works a little bit like military style. But if you go into a female-dominated environment, maybe even a classroom, or certainly it's a nursery school, hopefully a home, there's a warmth to it. It's more than just a functional location. It's a Beis Hamikdash. Before Hashem made the Beis Hamikdash, He made the original Mishkan was meant to be in the home of the individual, and the Rebbe was very into that. The whole idea of Chassidus is the Mishkan is the home, and we bring Hashem here. So, kind of the woman's potential to bring this warmth, right, is very, very, very much part of the female gift, and hence responsibility and role. Okay. So getting back to the original point is that we all have a need for for love, right? We all want love. The story is that we said this many times, so I'm not going to belabor the point, is that there's also jealousy in our world, right? So if I have something that perhaps, or just use the example the other way, if my friend has something that I don't have and I feel entitled as he is, um, classic examples brought down in halacha, it says in the Ten Commandments, don't be jealous. So you say, what do you mean don't be jealous? I'm jealous. It's a human emotion. So an example, it actually says this in the Torah, in the Ten Commandments, don't be jealous of another man's wife. So let's say I am jealous. So the answer is that, let's say this was a princess. Would you be jealous of the prince? No, because you're not a prince. In other words, the first of the Ten Commandments answers the last of the Ten Commandments. I am God, your Lord. I decide who gets what in this world. If it wasn't in your box, there's no way in the world you can get this thing. And that's how you get over jealousy, because it's just not even possible for me to have that thing. However, why would somebody be jealous? Because they feel it's not fair. Why is it not fair? Because you are not better than me. So two children, we gave an example, you have two children, and you give one, I don't know, a candy, and the other one you give a cucumber. So the one that you give a cucumber will throw a tantrum. Why should I have a cucumber and they? Now, if the parent has a candy and they have a cucumber, they might be okay. Understand? Because they don't feel entitled to what the parent has. You can only be jealous if you feel entitled. So getting back to the idea of love, we would feel entitled to love. Why should you have love and I don't have love? And all of anti-Semitism and all of bullying, the whole thing, all of anti-Israel, all boils down to this idea. It's basically some people feel love, good about themselves, and some people don't, and they're jealous. And the funny thing about jealousy, when the times of the Sfira Sa'ima, where 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died, a great tragedy, which we're celebrating or we're mourning till this very day. So it's an interesting thing, because every type of emotion, we kind of accept that I have that emotion. A person, I'm in love with this person, or that person made me angry, and then they go to the therapist for 10 years. But jealousy, you don't even know that you have it. You see what's wrong in the other, and you're not aware that the classic example of jealousy is if somebody didn't hurt you and you're angry at them. So the Baal Shem Tov says, if you see somebody's tefillin are off, that's actually a sense of jealousy. Because if a person's happy, they don't see what's wrong with others. What do you want? You want love. So when a person is kind of unhappy and miserable, I remember walking down the street with somebody, as a kid, and he was going through his difficulties. Somebody parked the car in a weird way. He was like, why do people park the car like this? And this kid never drove in his life. So does he really care so much about the parking rules of reality? Rather, in his own heart, there's a sense of jealousy. He's feeling down, and it's an excuse almost to bully somebody. And this happens in societies, been around societies that you've seen that. So the question that we have here is a very interesting question. Okay, so if somebody really did hurt me, how do I deal with this in terms of Ahavas Yisrael? And now, in the truth is, we answered this question the other day, which is we said how to deal with things, right? The Torah does say it, brought down in halacha, and I actually learned it again today, which is just like there's a mitzvah to love someone, there's a mitzvah not to hate someone. So how do you not hate somebody that has hurt you? And sometimes the way that we've been hurt is because the person was jealous, and even in abuse and pedophile and different things, actually the reason it's done is out of this jealousy. Even people that have teachers that are mean to students, it's kind of all from this jealousy. One person's walking around with a broken heart, and they're jealous of the person that isn't. And what they really try to do is break the person's heart, which is by using criticism that's unjustified, creating. One of the things we find with a bully is kind of the Webster definition. Is they're like, whoa, they look so good. But the reason they're looking so good subconsciously, sometimes it's even a mechanism in order to then be mean. In other I'm trying to create this persona of looking righteous, which on one hand, it may protect me, but on the other hand, on a subconscious level, it may actually be an excuse to then embarrass somebody. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic that goes on whereby a person has this need to put others down because they've been put down. And so the answer to the question, we kind of answered it the other day. It's not simple, but first of all, a person can, simple to hardest, right? Simple is you can approach the person and say, why did you do this? Right? In other words, what happens through anger is we feel basically humiliated. We feel put down. And so if a person can approach someone and they say, why do I'm upset by what you did. So then they can kind of level out in a certain way. There's serious crimes that happen to people. So it's a question of how do you actually get to that level? I don't know. Does this person take the person to court? I don't know. They bring in justice. That could be okay. A higher level, if you want to call it that, is the idea of forgiveness, if it's possible, right? And a higher level might be even compassion, right? A person can reach a level where a person can feel compassion. I heard a story where there was a court case where somebody, I don't know, this guy murdered somebody's son, and she went to the court case, and as the guy's leaving, she says to this guy, "I'm going to kill you." And he was very nervous. And then he went and she started visiting him inside the jail, and started like really being nice to him and giving him things. In jail, a person doesn't have much. Eventually, he really came to love this person and really felt so bad about what he did. And then one day he's feeling open. He says, like I always have this thing in my heart, like, when are you going to kill me? She says, I already killed you. I killed the evil in you, and yeah. So, I mean, it takes a very, very high, very, very high person. There's a story of a person who was literally part of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, just an anti-Semite. When they asked Freud for the psychology of an anti-Semite, so it's not the nicest thing to say, but he said, miserable bastards. So I used to think it's a joke, but then I realized, no, he was actually saying the psychology. What makes somebody be mean is because they're miserable. And so this person was writing to it was actually a conservative rabbi, and he was like, whatever, all this hate mail. And the rabbi's wife tells him, it must be that this guy, something's wrong with this guy. Why don't you kind of give him love? So he calls this guy up that's sending the hate mail. He's the head of the Ku Klux Klan of Louisiana. He's like, whatever, Roger, it's the rabbi. Oh, rabbi, what do you want? He says, I hear you're blind. He was blind. I wanted to offer to help you. It must be difficult. Is there anything I can do to help you? And the guy's like quiet for a second. He says, no, but thank you. And then he continuously is there. I don't know. He brings him. Eventually, the guy ends up moving in with the rabbi and converting to Judaism. So this was a classic case of a guy. I heard this. My sister-in-law's mother is a principal of a school. Now, I'm not suggesting this in all times. Listen, some people have been hurt in very, very heinous ways. So I'm not going there, but I'm just bringing out a certain point. Sometimes it's easier if it happens to someone else. But anyway, so she was one of the kids. You see this often in school. You'll have a kid that bullies other kids. So this one kid, she was really mean, maybe pulling other girls' hair. It was like a 6-year-old kid and pushing their desk, and that. So she did a little research. Turns out her parents got divorced, and it's a difficult situation. So she calls the kid over. She says, listen, I need you to help me. Can you help me in the classroom? And the kid is, oh, yeah, of course you can help. I need you to help me with this person. Help me. So she gave her this attention, and she turned the kid around. So, I saw this with I was a teacher. I had a difficult kid, and some of the women in my life, then I asked them what to do. They're like, yeah, whatever, similar things, whatever, give them extra love, give them attention. And it worked. And so the point is that often in life, it's the person that's feeling abused, and that abuse really is kind of to try to kill the love. Anybody ever saw Spider-Man 3? Spider-Man 3, you ever saw it? Spider-Man 3 is a very, very, very sophisticated movie in a way. It's famous Spider-Man stuff. But as opposed to most of these wars, which is between a villain and a good guy, in Spider-Man 3, the bad guy gets a vision from his father, the super bad guy that already died, and he says, attack his heart. Attack his heart. And he does something to make Spider-Man angry. And then there's like this war between anger, and the anger is like he has this kind of normal blue and red Spider-Man suit, but there's like this little bit black stuff. And it's trying to like get to him. And he goes to like a laboratory. He's like, what is this stuff? And like they catch it and they put it under a little cup, right? And it's like jumping. He says, I don't know what it is, but it really likes you. And then eventually his anger builds, and then he gets this black suit and he becomes vicious. Right? And then he has to like forgive. He has to let go of his anger in order to get rid, because he became this other person. And that's really what anger seeks to do. I've said this before. A lot of people might not like this, but what was really behind Obama was his anger at society. He was an angry black man, basically, because he was abandoned. He wrote a book, Dreams of My Father. And not to say, God forbid, to put that on all black people, many nice, beautiful people, but he is a person, what we call malcontent. They feel that life is mean to them. And, he was whatever his story is. And therefore, what do they really have? They have a desire to make other people upset and angry too. And that's like everything they do, which is create this image of perfection and holiness, all of it. Like, I call him, he was the shamer in chief, right? Shaming. Oh, you didn't make that business, and shaming these people. Busy with shaming everybody. Who appointed you as God to shame people? I mean, even God doesn't shame people. God loves people. He educates people. So it's this need to humiliate other people because he's walking around feeling humiliated. And so it's important to understand this. Why? Because a lot of us, almost not a lot of us, inevitably when we're hurt, is because we don't understand this. We got hurt because, anti-Semitism is the same thing. People are trying to shame the Jewish people, right? All this kind of stuff. This guy wrote a letter. I think you sent it to me. It was an amazing letter. So this guy who's a real expert in Middle Eastern stuff, got a degree in Oxford, wrote many books. And these moronic students, are protesting about Gaza. He says, where's your protest against the Baha'i in Iran, right? The Iranians, they're like murdering this, kind of very peaceful people. You talk about protests. The Arabs, no people are worse to quote unquote the Palestinians than the Arabs. They're not given jobs. They're not allowed to have land. All the Arab countries, they often are murdered, etc. We're talking Syria and Jordan, Lebanon. They're treated terribly. Where's your protest? We're talking about real violence, real murder, right? Syria, thanks to Obama, 500,000 people dead. People are, 50 million refugees. You know what that means? It's unbelievable what this one man did just in one country. Never mind Yemen, Libya, Egypt, Iraq. It's unbelievable. Where's your protest? And the answer is that they've basically been brainwashed. Now, what's actually happening here? Why is all this protest, UN, more resolutions, like the only UN refugee agency besides the general is for these Palestinians? What's going on? It has nothing to do with the Palestinians. People that cared about the quote-unquote Palestinians, refugees from 80 years ago or 70 years ago, they would actually go to Libya, go to these countries where they are, make sure that they have free rights, let them integrate into those countries. What's really happening is they're being kept as pawns to shame the Jewish people. But it doesn't work. Why? Because we have 4,000 years of experience with Goyim trying to shame us, and we don't take it serious. They're not a legitimate shamer. So when does the shame hurt you? when you think that the person that's shaming you is legitimate, that's when it can hurt you. And it's important to understand that nobody shames somebody else legitimately. Maybe a mother or a father trying to educate you. Unless the person has the love of a parent, there's nobody that can shame you. That shame is unwarranted, and it comes from their jealousy, and it comes because somebody shamed them, and they may look perfect, but their perfection is a cover over their shame. And that's why they're holding in their heart this pain, whether sometimes it's unconscious they're holding this pain, and therefore they're jealous that you're not holding that shame. And the Arabs have it in a tremendous way. They have a shame that's going back 4,000 years, right? Some of them are good, and some of them, thank God, have overcome it. Many of them that are Christian. You have many that are serving in the Israeli army. You have the Druze people. I like the Druze a lot. They're very proud people. Like they're much healthier. They don't have this kind of, they have a certain pride, right? But certainly the Islam has the shame connected to Yishmael, and that's why they made Yishmael the chosen son. It's like the shame that's going on. And the truth is, I feel bad for them. I've said this before. I did a video with a guy who was a former terrorist. And I said, if anything that we did wrong, that since our ancestor Abraham, and whatever, I apologized, and he apologized, whatever the Arabs did wrong. And he told me he cried. The guy was a murderer. He cried. Because it's a real thing. That shame is very real. Unless a person, I experienced shame, so I understood where they were coming from. Unless a person experiences walking around, there are people that have been abused very sadly. And like Rabbi Jacobson is very into healing people from therapy or speaking about trauma. So he said that he spoke about this to this one person that says this person feels like he's a burden to the world. So he says, tell me, there was like a, what do you call it? Oh my, forgetting my squirrel. There's a squirrel over there. Do you feel like you're a burden to the squirrel? He says, yes. In other words, a person from shame in early childhood can feel literally like they are a burden to the world. Now, it's very sad. It's very sad. We call it microaggression, right? In microaggression, and if I may say this, in South Africa, there's tremendous amounts of that, and it's like so many people have such shame, anxiety, and it's terrible. It's terrible what it's done. The Japanese, they say the Japanese are not born; they're made. They have a whole structure of when to bow, how to bow, and so they actually have this internal shame, and it's very sad because America used to be a very open society, but the amount, you just look at the media, the level, what Obama brought to America was this shaming. People didn't shame before. Was it just not polite? It's rude. It's evil. But suddenly the president of the United States is busy shaming everybody. So that's why leaders are very important, because they create a certain, if he does it, then it's probably okay. And so now it becomes the rhetoric. You just look at the way people are creating replies on YouTube, and we all have to make a very powerful resolution to stop criticize, stop shaming. It's just not okay. So once we understand that criticism is actually shame, right? Education is not shaming. Education is encouraging. Criticism is shaming, and shaming is a form of abuse. So then we'll understand that what happened to us was abusive. And once we understand that, we'll let go of the shame. Because now we understand it's the abuser's problem, or the abuser's indiscretion, the abuser's evil. It's not my evil. And so it's a very, very, very important connection to make. That kind of, in a way, is the best I can do. Because it is a complicated question. How do you actually deal with the mitzvah of Avas Yisrael when it is very painful? Any questions?
So we have one question from the stream. So if someone is parked on the sidewalk and it bothers me, is it because I'm jealous that they are taking up the space that I feel entitled to use right now? And then they said America seems to have a lack of shame.
That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. Lack of shame is different than shaming. So first of all, if somebody is parked on the sidewalk, I'll give you the truth. This is very interesting. If it angers you, yeah, it is your problem. Why? Because I'll give you an example. I can do something wrong. For example, I'll admit sometimes I eat chocolate with sugar. And if you ask me, Rabbi, should you eat chocolate with sugar? The answer is no, right? But I do. I'll even once in a while have chocolate cake. Should I eat chocolate cake? No, I shouldn't eat chocolate cake. Now, I may say to myself, wow, I'm never going to do that again. That was really stupid. That was bad. But I don't shame myself. Why? Because I love myself, which is very important because some of us are so self-critical that we're our own problem, right? That's a separate issue. I mean, it says, you're not allowed to talk lashon hara about yourself. You're not allowed to talk bad to yourself. Now, it's okay. You should discipline yourself, right? You should do tshuva.